So nice to meet you. Congratulations on another Emmy nomination for this season. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. It's so nice. And I was just talking to my partner about logistics, and I was like, "Oh, I think I'm excited." I'm sort of
Yeah,
gonna downplay it all, but it's gonna be really sweet to be together um and get dressed up and
yeah,
yeah, I think it's gonna be a really nice thing. And I'm just so happy that the show is getting this kind of love and it's nominated for the show and casting.
yeah.
Michael J. Fox, and it's just like very exciting.
It is exciting, and you all deserve it so much. Also, congrats on another successful run in Oh Mary. That's so exciting. I'm a theater boy at heart, so I did want to start by asking you, like, what does going back to the stage between these stints on TV do for you as an actor?
Oh gosh, it's like it's such a recharge because television is awesome. Obviously, they pay you really well, and
Yep.
the scope is so huge. I don't go anywhere where people don't bring up Shrinking or Ugly Betty or like TV things, and um and it is such a yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful tool, television, and especially when you're on shows that are meaningful to people. I mean, I hear from people about Shrinking all the time that it's like their family show that they watch together,
Yeah.
which is so moving to think that like we're watching something that people who love each other sit around and elbow and nudge and smile and laugh together, and it's just like that's awesome. As much as as much fun as I love going and gasping in a crowded theater watching Spider-Man, to
Yeah.
imagine people sitting at home with their loved ones, um, watching a show about people who love each other is great. Um, but doing theater it's like my lifeblood.
Yeah.
It's just like it's to me it's like exercise in a way. Like if I'm away from the stage for too long, I start to get a little crazy. And
Mm,
um I feel like I'm never better than in the wake of doing theater. This is the first time that I've been able to like go and do theater in the middle. It's like we're in the middle of shooting Shrinking 4,
mm,
season 4 right now. And so like I got to go do it in the middle and now I'm back and I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm like it's so it's such a rush being on
yeah.
stage and getting to do O'Mary. First of all, O'Mary is like the greatest play ever. I think it's so brilliant. And Sam Pinkleton, the director, and Cola Scola, who wrote and originated the role of Mary. I got to be with them. I got to spend 3 weeks working on this with them. And the first time I did it with Jinx Monsoon and Kumail Nanjiani, I spent a little time with Sam, but it was, we were being put into a show. This was different. We were remounting a version for cameras. They brought cameras in for a live capture. So it was different. And in some ways it'll be definitive. Um, and to watch Cole and Sam, both of whom won the Tony Award for their work on Oh Mary, be so gracious with me coming in as the sort of novice, Tony Mocked and Bianca Lee were joining us. They were part of the original off and on Broadway cast. Giles Terrera was playing Mary's husband. He was part of the original London cast. I'm kind of like the baby, the new guy, and they treated me with such respect and really let Cole and me find our version of this relationship and let Giles and me, like the relationships that I have in the play without giving anything away, because there's such wonderful spoilers in it that I don't want to spoil. Everyone should see. Everyone should see Oh Mary,
Mhm.
no matter who you are. But um, they trusted me, and it was such a gift that I got to spend real time opening this play back up again and then perform it in the West End, making my West End debut for the incredible English audiences that came.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great recharge, like you said, and
Oh,
what a very specific recharge for this instance too. Very,
yeah.
very cool. I love Brian. He's I'm not just saying this, he's probably my favorite character on Shrinking. I love him. And I feel like he really got to do a lot of growing up this year. What were kind of your specific goals with him coming into this season? I imagine you knew kind of what he was in for, but what were like your specific goals in approaching it?
I really wanted to do, it's such a complicated thing when um, same-sex couples have a child.
Hmm.
And I really wanted us to show it. I really appreciated that the writers wanted to tell that story and such a specific way. Because I think even though I think that's so interesting about specificity in storytelling is the more specific you get, the more suddenly relatable it all is. Um, like I think there's a sense that make it for everyone and then everyone will relate, but it's actually the opposite. The more
Yeah.
specific you make a story, and they do a great, just brilliant job of taking the specifics from sometimes stories that they've heard, sometimes our writers or our producers, sometimes my life, and they'll like put it into the show, um, and make it Brian's or make it whatever characters. And that specificity just makes the whole thing so much more relatable, I think. And what happens with Brian and Charlie and Baby Sutton in season three is a completely unique story in its way. Um, it was very sweet to tell. And then on top of that, the whole chosen family of it all, like the that this village is going to be there for Brian.
Yeah.
Um, if it's Gabby giving him advice, if it's Liz taking care of the baby, if it's Derek taking him stroller shopping, they're there for him.
Mhm.
And and I love that aspect of it too. I love that that is part of the specifics. That is part of the specificity of Brian's story is that yes, he has this incredibly patient and loving husband, and they have found this beautiful and wonderful woman that's going to let them take their baby, adopt their baby. But it's also this chosen family that's around them that's going to continue to help Brian grow up and become an adult, but also help the whole family um,
Yeah.
as they raise this little beautiful baby.
Little Sutton.
Little sweet
Um,
mom.
has your understanding of Brian changed at all then over the course of the three seasons, or does like your general approach to him remain the same despite like his growth?
Well, what's cool? So yes, and yes, it has because I I may have I've talked about this before, so forgive me if you've heard it,
No, you're
but
good.
I didn't know Brian was a narcissist until season two. And I was like, oh no, have I been playing it right? And everyone's like, yeah, girl.
Ah,
Um, it was actually a therapist, like a real therapist in life, met me backstage at a sh I think backstage at Spamalot or
oh
something. They'd
wow.
seen the show and they were like, "Oh, I love your character. He's such a narcissist." And I was like, "Thank you." What?
What?
And then I went and asked everybody. I was like, "So is Brian a narcissist?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Have I been doing that?" And then I was like, "Oh my God, I have no," because like real narcissists don't know they're narcissists.
Nope.
And I was like, oh my God, I've been playing a narcissist who doesn't know he's a narcissist. Does that mean I'm a narcissist? And I asked my therapist, and she said, nobody who asks that question is actually a narcissist. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. But that was a big thing that like learning that and realizing that about him was fun. But what I will say is anytime I try to guess what's coming, I'm wrong. And it's
Yeah.
something more interesting. And I actually learned something from Harrison Ford, who is
Casual.
colleague of mine. He talks a lot about we talk about he likes to talk about acting and I like to talk about acting and he loves the element of surprise.
Mhm.
And I think he's never done series television before, not really, like maybe Gunsmoke, I don't know, but he like, he's been a movie star. He's been making these movies all these years and now playing a character that grows and changes. I think is really fascinating for him because his favorite part of acting has always been the element of surprise. That's why he does his own stunts, because what's more surprising than a fight? And
Yeah.
so like so now he's playing Paul who has Parkinson's, which is different every day. You know, that's the
Mhm.
fascinating thing about playing someone with um, a debilitating disease like this is like his life is different every day. And so every scene, and I love doing scenes with Harrison because it's always like the first scene. You know, we might have a scene in the, in his office or around Liz and Derek's kitchen counter or whatever. Like we might be there over and over again, like the living room of Jimmy's house. Like we play scenes in the same places a lot, but that doesn't mean they're the same scene, even though like we might move the same or it might be some of the similar beats. And he never treats a scene the same way twice. And that like is like a microcosm of his whole uh, technique as an actor, which is this element of surprise. And I like that. I really, really like that. And in the theater, you kind of have to manufacture that because we know the play, we do it every day. We know what things get reactions from audiences and what they don't. And so then it becomes, then the technique of doing theater is sort of about like, how do we trick our audience into thinking it's the first time doing it? How do we as artists make it seem like it's the first time doing it, which is very fun and very exciting. But in television, you really don't know what's coming. Because I'm not in the writer's room and I don't like to ask questions. I don't like to know. I like to be surprised. Because we don't know what's coming in life. So it's like this kind of philosophical thing, it's a wonderful
Yeah.
philosophical thing, but uh it's also it makes for um great surprise and spontaneity.
Yeah. I love that. You kind of segued like perfectly into like my next bit, but like never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd see Harrison Ford at a gay gym talking about threesomes and I like I was screaming during that whole bit. But what is it like getting to play with that contradictory dynamic of Brian and Paul? I feel like we get to see a lot more of it this year. It's so fun and delicious to watch. So yeah.
It's so I adore it. I adore that that they have this unlikely relationship.
Hmm.
There's so many of those in the show,
Yeah.
like, and that's what's beautiful about a chosen family. I mean, I'm in some myself. These groups of friends that end up together, and you're like, oh yeah, how did you end up, and how do we become? You
Yeah.
know, I love that. And but there's Paul and Brian. There's no world where they would have met if Brian hadn't been best friends with Jimmy from college, and then an estate lawyer that was useful to Paul and now part of the group. And so when Paul needs to go to the gym, they send him with Brian and it's fabulous. Um and he is so game.
Yeah.
Harrison is just so game. Again, every time, we do a scene at a gym or you put him in the back seat while Jason and I are singing Les Mis. He's just like, he's game and he
Hmm.
likes being in the comedy. And then when it's time to turn on the pathos, he's got that. He's got that deep well, um, too. And yeah, it's very cool. And also he's 84 right now.
Crazy.
Um, Still loves it, still likes being there. When he's not there, I think I'm the same way. I like if I have too many days off, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go back. Let's go. Let's go back to work. I'm getting rusty here. And he's like that too. And he loves it. And I know that like when you interview him, he seems cranky, but it's actually he loves it. He loves it.
There's you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. Um, Kind of speaking of, this balance of, the comedy and the pathos, I think Brian is such a jolt of electricity every time he enters the space. I've seen you talk about like him bursting into the therapy session in his like intro. What is so impressive to me about your performance though is like you never overshadow like the heart and soul of it, but you still can like find the big and the funny. Can you kind of talk to me about finding his levels there and gauging it with the rest of the scene?
Well, it's in that's like in the writing. I think. When I was first in shows on TV, the note I always got the first few years on Ugly Betty was bring it down. It was always like do less. And um and I figured it out what that meant. I was always like, what do you mean do less? I'm doing 10 things over here. Um but it was really more about like, don't play to the back of the theater, play to the camera, which is right there. And you can still be as detailed and specific and do as many different little things as you want, as long as it seems like um it's for me here at the lens and not the people in the cheap seats or standing room in the back of the orchestra or whatever. But um with with Brian and with this character, like he really does burst into every scene he's in and kind of he's sort of a disruptor that way. And that is it's sort of by design um and they've done such an amazing job of giving me like great entrances and great uh he's so often not paying attention to what's going on, and that's like great. So it's like I can be up here because I'm not reading the room. So it's really like it's really in the writing. They write me these incredible, monologues where he's obtuse, or entrances where he's being selfish and not paying
Yeah.
attention, it kind of does the work for me.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I read a script and I think, what does this mean? Or what am I supposed to be playing here? It's always very clear to me what
Good.
they want Brian to do. And they've gotten so good at like writing what we're what comes naturally to us or what we found in these characters, that even though it's always surprising, it always feels familiar, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
No, definitely. Kind of speaking on your early like Ugly Betty experience. When Ugly Betty was initially airing when I was in junior high, I would always have like a lot of grown women and moms come up to me and be like, "Have you seen Ugly Betty? You remind me so much of Mark St. James. Like, I love Mark. You're like Mark." And now,
Ah,
as like a 32-year-old, I'm kind of I realize like, oh, they were kind of clocking something before I knew what that meant. But I think Mark was like so huge for bringing characters like that into homes, him and a slew of other characters. And
sure.
it kind of made me think like, you're on Shrinking playing Brian, who is a gay man married with a baby, and his arc is largely removed from like homophobia and issues with his identity. He's just kind of very normalized. What does that feel like to be kind of at a place with a character like Brian and look back at maybe a Mark St. James in that era and how far it's come and you've come?
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool like bookend to playing, Mark, because that was a guy who was in a very gay world, um, and carrying the baggage of not being accepted by his mother. And Brian is a guy in a very straight world that's totally accepted within this straight world and assumes he's not going to be he every time you hear about him and his dad, he assumes it's not going to go well, and it does. His dad always sort of comes around, and so it's even though Brian, both characters have their own trauma, which is true of all of us who spend any time pretending we're something we're not, which is, so many queer people at some point are pretending to be something they're not. Now it's less, obviously, like now we've got like, kids that are out and accepted from the very beginning of their lives, which is really beautiful. But people of a certain age did go through that. We had a great storyline on Shrinking where Brian and Jimmy have a fight because Brian doesn't feel like they would be friends if they met today. The only reason they're friends is because they have history from when Brian was straight, or was closeted. And I thought that was such an exciting story to tell because I can relate to that. I have friends that I became friends with when I was not my whole self.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes, what if we met today?
Yeah.
And that's like, it's a bit of a rabbit hole. It doesn't really matter because the circumstances that brought you up those are the circumstances, and that's who makes you, and you can't change um you can't change your given circumstances. You can't change your past. But to get to play a character who is a minority in his friends group, but doesn't face any homophobia at all from them. He is occasionally an outsider, but still belongs. Um, I'm really proud of that, and for the same reasons that Ugly Betty was for you, and the ladies around you, like an awakening and an opportunity. I mean, I hear this a lot that like I hear this. It's over sometimes overwhelming when I hear from people who say Mark showed them what was possible,
Yeah.
or Betty showed them what was possible, or the show showed them New York or journalism. I mean, I hear about that a lot. It's really beautiful that like all those things that show was about um, became inspirations to people. Um, and that they still look back on it. It's just really beautiful. And in the same way, now when I'm stopped by people who like shrinking, it's a lot of straight men who,
Wow. Okay.
I mean, a lot who are watching these big straight heroes, literally. Um, we've got Harrison Ford, we've got Jason Segel. So we've got like a hero, a bro. We've got like Ted McGinley, who was like resident like douchebag on so many shows and movies, and then Luke Tenney, who is this genius newcomer who is playing a veteran with PTSD. Like these are masculine guys.
Hmm.
They love Brian, and they are okay talking about their feelings. And so here's this show that gets to like not only include a queer guy like me who's got problems, who's not, not some saint, but we're showing men how to take care of themselves and each other.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
sweet when I see like a hetero dude come up to me and I can see in his eyes how much it means. And he's telling me, it's not that he's telling Bill Lawrence or Jason Segel. He came up to me to say that. And gosh, it's great. It's like,
Yeah.
look at this little piece of the world we're like helping to heal, change, grow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's that's my time. I could talk to you all day and
Oh,
truly like you are huge for me growing up, so this was like a real big honor for me. So
thank
thank you
you.
for taking the time. I know you're busy and I'm really rooting for you.
It was really my pleasure. It was lovely talking to you. Thanks for saying
Lovely chatting. Of
all this.
course.